How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Pirates Corner Episode 3. I'm here with Josh again. Today, a couple of the topics that we are going to go over, some draft prospects. We're going to talk about Ke'Bryan Hayes a little bit, Aaron Slegers and Dario Agrazal, and some topics about the bullpen also. We're going to touch on some former Pirates going to some different teams. And we are also, of course, going to revisit the shortstop position. Before we start off, I just wanted to say thank you to all my new viewers and followers from Josh's appearance on the North Shore 9 Live podcast. And I believe our episode 2 got probably about 55 views, and episode 1 is up to about 75. So thank you, everybody, for watching. So we can go ahead and start out with talking about Russell Martin. Russell Martin went back to the Dodgers. He started his career there, correct?
Yes, he did. He ended up going back to the Dodgers in an agreement that the Blue Jays are sending $16.4 million to pay the majority of what's left on his 1 year, $20 million left on his contract right now. So the Dodgers got their 1 year solution to kind of bridge the gap to the two top catching prospects they're going to have battle it out for the starting role there.
One is Keibert Ruiz, right? Is that
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And
I've heard of him before.
Russell Martin kind of goes back where he made his name in the big leagues, and Dodgers have some familiarity with him. They're comfortable with him, and they get a guy who fits their needs. It's not Francisco Cervelli, but that just means...
Does that rule out a trade for Cervelli?
It doesn't completely. It means that any doors the Pirates knocked on regarding trading Cervelli to any other teams, they need to be in the process of revisiting that if they're looking to move Cervelli before opening day. So right now they got to consider the possibility of giving him a qualifying offer after 2019 before they kind of wrap up the off-season portion of deciding the catching position and move forward with that, whether they're going to move forward with Diaz and Stallings or Cervelli and Diaz once more.
Personally, I feel like Diaz can start at the major league level, and Cervelli, he's gotten hurt. I mean, when was the last time he catched a full season or caught a full season? It's been a little bit because he's always having a different injury. It's not like Troy Tulowitzki with his back, because I think he's had back problems in the past. He had some bone spurs last year, I believe. But, I mean, I think that Diaz can probably do a good job at the major league level starting, just because of what he was doing last year with all the power he produced, how he hit, and how he also was feeling the ball. And, I mean, Russell Martin, good for him. He was a big piece of our 2013 team that broke the 21-year streak. But I don't think that the Pirates are going to trade Cervelli at this point, because the Dodgers were like the only team that we really heard about. Ross Stripling was a name that came up. I personally am not so high on Ross Stripling. I feel like some of our organizational guys can do a better job. But right now, I think that Cervelli's probably going to be our opening day catcher. Cervelli's going to be the backup again. Diaz is going to be the backup again. And I think Diaz will still get playing time like he did last year, but maybe not a starting role right away.
Yeah, so Cervelli last played 130 games. He's only played 130 games in his career once.
And that was
2015, yeah. And the Pirates had their best season in recent memory, kind of with Cervelli just locking down that starting catching job. That's why I was kind of looking to see what they would do with that position, whether or not, if Diaz ends up being the starter all year long, then that could produce a really good season if they opted to trade Cervelli. But it's kind of just something to watch as the offseason is kind of past the midway point, because we're in January now. Pitchers and catchers report in 32 days, I believe. So we're not far off from spring training.
Yeah, so I think that the Pirates are in a pretty good spot right now with what they have. I would hope that they could get another big name in the offseason, and that brings me to another point. Jed Lowrie signed with the Mets, correct?
Yes.
Mets.
2 years, $20 million.
Yeah, 2 years, $20 million, which for Jed Lowrie, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
For him personally. We could see what he does. I mean, he is getting up there in age, but if he came to the Pirates, he would probably... I mean, he's a second baseman. I don't know if he would necessarily play shortstop.
Yeah, he's played there before, but we can get into that more once we revisit the shortstop position.
Yeah.
But for today, we have some draft prospects. Right,
yeah.
Ryan?
Yes, draft prospects. We sat here after episode 2 and watched some videos, watched some MILB tapes about some of the draft prospects. We had like a list of about 7 people. I sent the list to Josh. He researched some, and we came away with 4 that we really liked. Some infielders and a pitcher. So let's start off with, do you have Daniel Espino there?
Yeah, I have some information on Daniel Espino, but what I wanted to start with is courtesy of Pirates Prospects. Shout out to Pirates Prospects and Tim Williams. They let us know that the Pirates do have 5 picks in the top 100. That's pick 18, pick 37, pick 57, pick 75, and pick 95 throughout the first 3 rounds there.
We could
95
really
maybe into the 4th round, just depending on how long the compensation rounds are. The Pirates could really rebuild their farm system. But did you have anything on Daniel Espino, Ryan?
Well, he throws a pretty good fastball, right?
He does.
Upper 90s. What other pitches does he have? Because I didn't go completely in depth like you did with the draft prospects. But what other pitches does he have?
Well, Daniel Espino is interesting in that he doesn't actually cookie cutter fit into the mold that the Pirates are looking for. Sinker slider to go together and 4-seam curveball. He throws mostly a 4-seam fastball, and that's the pitch that he's ramping up there, sitting 94 plus easy. Okay, the kid is 6'3", over 200 pounds. And he's only going to be 18 shortly before the draft in June. So he's not very old. He's 17 years old right now, and he's doing this. He's thrown fastballs at 98 and 99 miles per hour already as a 17-year-old. This is all mostly the 4-seamer, and the fact that he doesn't fit cookie cutter into the Pirates' big league pitching philosophy is not an issue right now, because this guy has some serious weapons. His best secondary pitch is the slider. He's breaking that off really nicely. And it's set up really well because his fastball at 17 years old is readily around the strike zone. He's hitting spots. Catcher sets a target, and he's hitting spots. So this guy, right now he's the 13th ranked draft prospect. But if teams shy away from a high school pitcher picking that high, then he may be available to the Pirates. He could be available at 18. He could be available at 37, just depending on if there's a run on college players because of all of the draft slot bonus pool money that's in play that changes from the past few years. So teams have largely been staying away from high school players early. 18's late enough to pick them. So I anticipate him possibly being there. Now, as far as things go, I imagine if the Pirates were to draft this kid, they would have him throwing a 2-seam fastball pretty quickly. And being that his 4-seam fastball sits in the mid to upper 90s so easily at this age, his 2-seamer, provided he starts throwing it, that's not going to be too much of a drop-off. So you could see him as a sinker slider who uses the additional weapons of 4-seamer curveball, because his curveball is his 3rd best pitch, and it's also ranked highly. He's done a nice job with the curveball as well.
So, Espino, I have some stuff on him here on my phone. Perfect Game is a huge scouting website that players go and do showcases in front of colleges, teams. Some facts about him: he's committed to LSU. He's out of Georgia. He graduates in 2019, so that's this year. He's 6'4", 200. And according to this Perfect Game event, his fastball hit 99 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So for being 18 and throwing 99 right now, that's pretty good. And like you said, a two-seam might go into his weapons at some point. But we're going to have to see. Hopefully, maybe we could pick up a shortstop infielder at 18 and maybe get this guy at 37 if he drops a little bit.
Yeah, it's possible. And the other thing to like about him, you could even throw a little bit more bonus pool money his way if you opted to pick him at 18. It's just a matter of developing that strategy. He's got a compact, low maintenance delivery, so he's just delivering these pitches, breaking off sliders at a really nice rate from a easy to coach delivery. So that's the key for him. And the slider is a pretty significant off speed because it sits in the low 80s for him. The curveball is going to range in the mid 70s for him, and it's a lot different in action than his slider. Kind of moves the same way, but it's a lot larger of a loop because it's actually a true natural curveball, none of the slurve stuff that everybody seems to be falling in love with these days. But he throws a true curveball, and that fits well with his four-seamer. He also throws a changeup, but it's his fourth most used pitch. It's got really good arm side action and fade when he commands it. He doesn't always have a feel for it, but once again, kid's 17 years old, going to be 18 soon, but very much a developmental pitcher who would be a great fit for the Pirates, especially where they're going with kind of pairing pitches and getting these pitchers to throw more off-speed pitches to complement their fastballs.
Anybody in the MLB who you can compare him to at all?
Well, he looks like a couple of MLB players, like his facial features, but that doesn't really mean much. I would say I would compare him to young Edinson Volquez, how he was just throwing smoke out there, and that kind of brings you to the Pedro Martinez in his prime. I'm not really going to go there because that's not really going to be a popular opinion to have for a lot of fans out there, comparing a kid who's 17 years old to a Hall of Fame pitcher. But other pitchers that are similar in height and throw like him, you could go with Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller is same height and weight listed on his page, 6'3", a little over 200 pounds. Mitch Keller's older and more developed, but similar stuff. Just Keller's not a slider guy. So if you're thinking guys that throw the slider, well, Chris Archer, his name comes to mind. A little bit different build than Chris Archer. He's a little bit bigger than Chris, but just that he's a guy who's got some serious weapons from a pitching standpoint. So that's going to take us to our next guy. This is Braden Shewmake. And Shewmake, what he brings to the table is he's a college shortstop. And this may leave a bad taste in some people's mouths because Kevin Newman came up and he was safe. He was a college draft pick, but he hasn't hit much. Well, Shewmake coming out of the draft, he's a little bit different than Kevin Newman because he's 6'4", 190 pounds. So he's got that tall, lanky shortstop build. Everyone expects him to stay at the position. He's not a fleet of foot blazing runner. He's not going to steal 40 bases, but he's very good on his feet. His lateral quickness is exceptional, and his glove is phenomenal. So this kid coming out of college, he is going to Texas A&M right now, and he's 21 years old, heading into his junior season this spring. So he hadn't been drafted previously, but he's a guy who has projectable power. He's hit for some power already, and left-handed hitter, right-handed thrower from the shortstop position. He's got some range, and if I had to throw out a MLB comparison for him right now, I would probably say like Zach Cozart. He shares some things in common with Dansby Swanson.
So he hits from the left side.
Yeah, both of those guys are right-handed hitters, but they've both hit for some sneaky pop. Like they can hit the ball over the fence, but this guy's a left-handed hitter.
Braden's 6'4", which is pretty big for a shortstop. Do you see third base in his future?
I don't really, because of how well he moves and how old he is. He's almost to the point where he's as filled out as he's going to get. It's hard to actually say that without him getting into his prime years. But the kid's tall and lanky, and he moves well. He moves like a shortstop. So provided any issues with staying in shape, stuff like that, he's going to stick. Provided he doesn't have any of those issues, he's going to stick at shortstop. He's got a really good throwing arm, so that plays well for being a shortstop moving forward. This is a much different situation than Kevin Newman, and this is a guy that the Pirates really should consider at 18. I know I love Daniel Espino there, but if they get Braden Shoemake at 18, I would not be upset about that, because there's a chance that Espino, if he's not off the board already, he could continue to slide down that draft board. So that covers two of the guys, and we'll go to another college hitter. Okay. And going through, breaking down some of these prospects, it was kind of like a trade-off of what do we got? Do we got power versus contact issues? So Drew Mendoza looked like the best trade-off of power versus contact. His hit tool doesn't grade out as spectacular yet, and he's 21 years old, but it should be at least average. And the raw power is what really caught my eye here. He doesn't run super well, but he's a third baseman. So he does have the lateral quickness and agility to get it done as a reaction player at third base. So as long as you're not looking for him to steal 20 bags for you, he'd be a great option at third base. He has an average to above average throwing arm, so he grades out well there. Everything about him suggests that he should stick at third base. And the raw power potential makes him a great candidate to be a plus, an asset to a big league team once he gets to the big leagues. Anything to add on this guy?
Well, being 6'5", I feel like third base is a place where he can settle in. Like Josh said, his hit tool is not there, but a lot of power, and I like his arm as well, graded as a 50 here on the scouting grades. He was previously drafted by Detroit in the 36th round in 2016. So that means he was good enough in high school to get looked at and drafted, and hopefully some of his attributes got a little boost by going to college. He's currently a junior. He's 6'5", 225. So we could see him possibly fly through the minor leagues. Being 21, he's going to start where Swaggerty started.
Probably Bradenton.
Yeah.
Maybe low A, but he's going to. He's essentially giving you like a poor man's version of Chris Bryant as a prospect, and I'm kind of torn on where I think the Pirates should take him. I don't consider him an option at 18 at all, but I do consider him an option at 37
or 57.
57 would be ideal to get this guy.
That would be very good.
Yeah.
So do you want to move on to Matthew Lugo? Is this the guy from Puerto Rico?
Yes, this is the guy from Puerto Rico.
We really liked him. He went to Carlos Beltran Baseball Academy down there.
Yeah. And he's not Carlos Correa. If that's what you're expecting, you're going to be disappointed. But the good news is he's a really good baseball player. This kid is he's just the prototypical shortstop. Very, very, very smooth. He's got a really good hit tool, well above average hit tool.
At 55.
Yeah, as a 17-year-old kid, and he doesn't turn 18 until right before the draft as well. He turns 18 in May. Right now he's listed at 6'1", 185 pounds. So the height and weight suggests he's going to stick at shortstop. And Puerto Rico has a pretty good track record with these guys that fit this prototype, sending them to the big leagues and having them stick at shortstop. Francisco Lindor, Carlos Correa, yeah, you get the gist here.
Good thing he's from Puerto Rico because, I mean, he's eligible for the draft. Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S., so eligible for the draft. We don't necessarily have to spend any international pool money on him.
And you don't have to compete with other teams. You just draft him.
Yeah, you just draft him. He's yours. Hopefully he signs. He's committed to Miami, which is a pretty decent baseball school. But I feel like if we were to draft him at 18 or 37, he would want to sign. A guy last year who it just didn't make much sense to me getting picked in the first round was Gunnar Hoagland. I know that we're going to get a draft pick for him this year, but he got drafted pretty high, and he did not sign, which I don't know if he's going for first overall. I don't know, but he was a guy who could possibly be a good starting pitcher for us. But getting his pick now this year, and looking at the draft class that we have, have 5 picks in the top 100, which is a very, very nice setup this year. Yeah,
it's going to reinfuse talent into the farm system one way or the other. Either quality in the draft strategy of using that money, like using all of that draft bonus pool money on one guy, okay? Because at the end of that, you're not going to get penalized because you've got 5 picks in the top 100. If you draft, say, 2 guys that are really highly sought after, pay them a bunch of money, and then get 3 other guys that are decent upside, a little bit safer, more signable options. So with that strategy to be employed, if the Pirates were to get like a couple of guys at 18, 37, and then Matthew Lugo's there at 57, even 75, just pushing that 95 pick money onto the 75 pick in the offer for his signing bonus, maybe you could pry him away from Miami, just depending on how everything plays out. But on draft day, the Pirates will be employing some strategy that takes all of that into account, signability, everything like that. And there will be a strategy where there's some risk taken with reward. So Lugo very much fits that strategy, being that he's committed to Miami. So it's a little bit risky from a signability standpoint, but you got a lot more money to play with because of those 5 picks within the top 100, where the bonus pool money's significantly higher than further down the draft.
You will hear us revisit some draft prospects. Maybe we'll come out with a bit more, some more prospects. Once names start popping up, mock drafts for the second round, third round, and probably top 10 rounds, we'll start talking about it more. The draft is still a long ways away, but I'm sure that the Pirates scouting department and baseball operations are already starting to look at some prospects.
And with that said, I just wanted to revisit something that happened right after we recorded our podcast last week, episode number 2.
A couple things happened, actually.
Yeah, but the big, most important thing was our hitting coach's younger brother ends up signing as a special assistant in this area. He's going to be looking at talent. David Eckstein is now a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates front office. No, he's not playing shortstop for the team. He did used to play there, but he's going to be bringing
for the Cardinals.
He's going to be bringing great shortstops to the Pirates for the foreseeable future. So,
yeah, and another guy is Jeff Branson. He's back. They're stacking up the front office, and I like some of the moves that they're making.
Jeff Bannister.
What did I say?
You said Jeff Branson. You gave everyone a heart attack right there.
Jeff Bannister, not Jeff Branson. No, Jeff Bannister. Similar names, but they're stacking up the front office and getting a hitting coach like Rick. And I haven't really looked into Jacob Cruz much, the assistant hitting coach. I'm gonna have to do some research on him, but bringing in Dave, bringing in Jeff, and Rick, this could make for some good draft picks in the future.
Yeah, and that's where the Pirates really need to focus. After trading away 5 pretty significant prospects, going all the way down to Shirt and Apostle, going to the Rangers, power prospect being the lowest ranked prospect moved at last year's deadline. But that kind of leads us into another guy. He wasn't drafted. He's not going to be drafted by the Pirates. He's a member of the Pirates organization, and we're all looking forward to his debut. Could it come in 2019? Could it be in 2020? Well, the guy we're referring to here is Ke'Bryan Hayes. We all saw him on some of the Pirates vlogs that have been coming out this week from the minicamp down there. Did you have anything to add on Ke'Bryan Hayes, Ryan?
I feel like he could possibly come up next year. I think he could benefit from a full season at AAA this year. Learn some of the pitching, and maybe a September call-up, maybe later in the year. But at AAA, I see Cole Tucker playing short. I see Ke'Bryan Hayes playing third. And probably Will Craig playing first. So that infield's going to be pretty good this year. And I don't know. I think that 2020 is his year. Ke'Bryan Hayes could possibly make his MLB debut in 2019.
Like September.
Like September call-ups. But 2020 could be the year that he breaks out. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's just going to depend on how well he's mastering the AAA level. He did a really nice job at AA. And that kind of leads us to a guy we were thinking about having on the podcast this week. A friend of the podcast, Troy Kristoff. He wasn't able to make it. He lost his voice. He's sick this week. Get well soon, Troy. But he had some really good stuff to say about Ke'Bryan Hayes. And I just wanted to pass that along to our listeners so that they could hear this quality information that Troy had passed along to me this past week. What he said about Ke'Bryan Hayes, we were having a discussion kind of comparing Ke'Bryan to Andrew McCutchen as a prospect, and he said sometimes you have great athletes that play baseball, okay? Well, Ke'Bryan Hayes is a baseball player that just happens to be a great athlete. What he meant by that is Ke'Bryan Hayes, being a kid that he watched all this past season at Altoona, he gets out to a bunch of Altoona games, has baseball instincts. This kid's going to come up, run the bases well, time his jumps on stolen bases attempts, and he just has a nose for finding the ball off the bat. reaction is phenomenal at third base. The lateral quickness is phenomenal. The throwing arm's phenomenal. Just everything about his game defensively is phenomenal, and his offense is starting to catch up with his defense. So keep an eye out for Ke'Bryan Hayes. We might see him this year, and Troy Christoph will tell you he's a phenomenal baseball player.
Yeah, so we have a pretty bright future ahead if in the infield. Kind of revisiting the draft prospects, kind of not. When we look at shortstops and we're thinking about building up the shortstop position, Aniel Cruz and Cole Tucker have to come to mind. Because, in your opinion, do you think that we're good at shortstop, or do you think that we should keep building?
Well, shortstop is a premier defensive position. We're too deep there in the minors, unfortunately. It looks like Kevin Newman is nothing more than a safe, possibly, like, his ceiling looks like it's Jordy Mercer.
Yeah.
He's not spectacularly rangy at short. He doesn't have a great throwing arm. So he developed. He's fully developed, and he was almost a finished product when the Pirates drafted him out of college. But he's continued to develop some in the minors, but the tools just aren't there to be like a really good big league shortstop. I was hoping he could come up and be like Jack Wilson. So Kevin Newman doesn't look like he's the answer at shortstop. It's kind of unfortunate because the Pirates used a first-round draft pick there. So fortunately, Cole Tucker, who was another first-round draft pick, and Aniel Cruz look like they're both really good players at shortstop, with Aniel Cruz being more of an offense-first guy and Cole Tucker being a defense-first guy, but both have the tools to continue to excel on the area that currently sits as more of a weakness in their game right now. Aniel Cruz played last season mostly at, Bradenton?
Yeah, I think he spent some time with the West Virginia Power. He might have spent most of his time with West Virginia and maybe a couple games at Bradenton. You can look that up. But infield's looking pretty good now. There's still a couple spots to fill, a couple pieces to add.
Yeah.
And third base with Ke'Bryan Hayes, he's our best third base prospect in the system by far. Who's coming up after him at third base?
Well, the thing is, there's no one really significant coming up after him. Just to go back to Aniel Cruz. He played 103 games at West Virginia. He was on the disabled list a little bit here and there, and he posted phenomenal offensive numbers as a shortstop for West Virginia. So he'll be moving up a level this year, going to Bradenton. He's starting to mature, so he could move quicker if he goes to Bradenton and dominates that level early on.
An absolute steal in that Tony Watson trade.
Yeah, going back to Ke'Bryan Hayes, it's been pretty apparent since probably mid-season last year that Ke'Bryan Hayes is the future at third base for the Pirates. They don't really have another significant third base prospect in their top 30. But they have moved other players off of third base. Like Will Craig has played some third base.
That's
Jordan
what he was
Luplow,
drafted as, right?
Yeah. Jordan Luplow played some third base, but that didn't really work out defensively. So they moved him right back to the outfield, what he was drafted as originally. But Aniel Cruz isn't fully committed to shortstop for the future, but right now it looks like it's headed in that direction. He could end up being a third baseman if he can't stick at shortstop, because he has a very nice throwing arm, And yeah, other than Ke'Bryan Hayes, there's no one in the top 30 prospects for the Pirates that's actually listed as a third baseman. We did see Kevin Kramer appear at third base for the Pirates last season, so he is another shortstop. Not a shortstop, a third base option among current top 10 prospects for the Pirates, but he's actually a little bit ahead in terms of development, ahead of Ke'Bryan Hayes. So, yeah, there's not much in terms of third base behind Ke'Bryan Hayes. That's kind of why we focused with the draft prospects on shortstop, and we looked at a college third baseman because that's going to be the area of focus rebuilding the farm system.
So I just went onto the Indianapolis Indians website because I was wondering who played third base for the Indians last year.
Yeah, it was mostly Jose Osuna.
Yeah, so what I did was I went into game-by-game results, went to each month and just picked a random game. So for April, their third baseman was Jose Osuna. For May, their third baseman was Kevin Kramer. This is one game out of the month. I'm just looking for a small sample size. Kevin Kramer played third this game. Then we have Pablo Reyes.
Yep.
We have Jose Osuna again. And then, let me look at September. We had Eric Wood.
Yep.
So, Eric Wood's nothing special by any means.
He's pretty much become an organizational player in the farm system. Just a gap filler on a roster.
So, third base kind of jumped around at AAA last year. There wasn't a set third baseman. Like at AA. AA, Ke'Bryan Hayes was playing third. He was the starting third baseman. At AAA, is a little bit different. So now we're going to see Hayes move up to AAA. And I'm going to go, while you talk about, I don't know if you want to talk more about Ke'Bryan, but I'm going to go onto Bradenton's roster and see who played third for them and see who may be playing third at the AA level this year.
Yeah. So the next point on the list that we had was we were just going to revisit shortstops. Okay, we had mentioned Jed Lowry signing with the Mets. So that's a guy that we had pretty high on our potential shortstop signing board for the Pirates. But Thursday night on the NS9 Live, I kind of made a huge stir regarding Machado rumors, and Machado's camp kind of had my back the next day when they came out and said, there's definitely a mystery team involved, because I was just getting like mixed feedback. Some people were like, oh, you sold me completely on this. Others were like, where are you even getting this stuff from? So while some people might not think it's realistic, the Pirates are looking to improve their team, and Machado continues to be pretty much the best shortstop option on the market for them. The money we talked a little bit about on Thursday night, and how it could be crippling to the Pirates. Ideally, the Pirates would want to acquire Machado at the current largest offer he has on the table, 8 years, $200 million, which is actually from the White Sox. He kind of wants to join a team that he sees as not rebuilding, a team where he can look at the pitching staff and be like, okay, I'm going to be playing behind a bunch of good pitchers. That's not Philly, that's not Chicago, and we've got the Yankees after signing DJ LeMahieu
and Troy
Tulowitzki.
They're
pretty
probably
much
out on it.
They're out on Machado. They would have to make some roster moves in order to make that a possibility. So that's where we sit with that.
Just going back to who played third base for the Marauders last year, it was Hunter Owen. I don't know much about Hunter Owen. Maybe he'll play third base third base at AA this year. We're gonna have to see. But
he's not much of a good contact hitter. He hits some bombs, but he's not a great prospect. He still has a potential big league future, but he's probably going to go to Double-A and be the third baseman. Other than that, not much of a future there. So the Pirates want to draft shortstops who, if they fail at short, move over to third base. And third basemen coming out of college, they're more of a finished product, aren't going to slide over to first base. Guys that'll stick at the position.
All right, so revisiting shortstop. Machado, we were talking about this last podcast, I believe, and possibly the first one too. Machado's on the top of all of our wish lists. I wasn't completely sold on Machado becoming a Pirate because Machado, it just doesn't seem like a Neil Huntington move. In my opinion, I feel like a Neil Huntington move would be a Jose Iglesias or a Freddie Galvis or even a Nick Ahmed, even though neither me or Josh don't really like him. But rumors were squashed about a mystery team being in there a couple weeks ago, I believe, by John Heyman. Yeah. Now it's coming out again that they're back on track.
And it's John Heyman reporting.
Yeah, it's John Heyman reporting this.
He's getting the information from Machado's camp. There is indeed a mystery team out there. It's not confirmed who that team actually is. But, yeah, it's John Heyman.
And you look at what happens. So, at the beginning of the Machado sweepstakes, we have a bunch of teams in on it. There wasn't like a set 3 teams at the beginning of all this. Everybody was looking at him. Everybody was seeing how he could fit in their lineup.
Yeah, there was pretty much 3 teams that we just mentioned: Yankees, Phillies, White Sox, and then 3 other teams that didn't really want anyone else to know they were in on him.
So we got 6 teams there looking at Machado. Then it comes out that Machado's kind of narrowed it down to the Yankees, the White Sox, and the Phillies. So those mystery teams kind of pull out a little bit and go, okay, maybe we could look at other options, see who else we could get, start looking at other shortstops on the market. Now the Yankees signed DJ LeMahieu, and they also signed Troy Tulowitzki. Now another mystery team is coming into play.
One of the same 3.
Yeah, one of the same 3. Well, yeah, one of those mystery teams are coming back into play. And from what I've looked at, there's a couple teams that need a shortstop. And the Phillies don't necessarily need a shortstop. They have an okay farm system. Well, they have a pretty good farm system, but they have okay players at the big league level.
And Gene Segura
Gene Segura as well.
Down the shortstop
and
position.
So what? Is he going to move over to third? From what I've heard is that Machado wants to play shortstop. That's what I've seen on Twitter. That's some of the reports that I've seen. Now we have another mystery team coming into the game on Machado. Now, it's going to cost a lot of money, but get past the money standpoint here and look at what Machado could do for this team. He could push us over the mediocre level that everybody thinks that we're at. Nobody's talking about the Pirates going all the way this year. People who rate teams are saying that the Pirates are going to get 78.5 wins. I feel like that's we've improved from last year. I don't feel like we're not at the same level that we were. I mean, we got rid of Nova. Okay, we lost a starting pitcher. He wasn't the savior here. So I feel like Machado can come in and Pittsburgh could be back on the map again like 2013, 14, 15. I feel like the Pirates are the mystery team here, and there's a good chance that they'll get Machado.
So the fact that they are one of the most logical teams as a potential destination, and the fact that a mystery team is being rumored to be back in play for him, it means that if this mystery team is indeed the Pittsburgh Pirates, there's a good chance he ends up on the Pirates. As of right now, unless the White Sox outbid the Pirates by a significant margin, Machado would probably see the Pirates as a much better fit for the near future. The White Sox probably are 3 years away from being significant. It could be 2 if Michael Kopech were to come back fully and completely
and
from
really
the Tommy
good.
John surgery. Yeah, so they have some significant pitching prospects.
And I don't know if Machado necessarily wants to do a rebuild.
Yeah.
Because Machado's the type of guy, he was in the league last year. He got thrown over to LA as a rental to try to get them into the World Series and get them a ring. It didn't work out, but Machado, I don't feel like he's going to, like everybody's saying, okay, John Jay's there, and who else was it? Yonder Alonso.
Yeah.
Family and friends are in Chicago. If I was a baseball player and I had my brother and my best friend on the Baltimore Orioles, and I was a guy who could go out and get a ring with a team, I wouldn't go there. The Orioles are a long way from winning, and the White Sox are closer than the Orioles, but they were in this spot, and they are still rebuilding because they're in a pretty easy division, and right now it's looking like it's going to be between the Twins and the Indians. So I feel like Machado can go to a place where they're not rebuilding, and they could win. And the Phillies, they got Gene Segura. They got Maikel Franco. Granted, Maikel Franco is my favorite player ever. Second base, they got Cesar Hernandez. And Rhys Hoskins is going to be moved to first base this year because McCutcheon's in the outfield. And now they're looking at Harper. I don't think that they can get both of these guys.
Yeah.
And their rotation isn't anything special either. I don't think that they're going to do much on the pitching side this year.
They need to kind of focus on bringing in a free agent pitcher or two.
Keuchel.
The free agent market for starting pitching is kind of starting to fizzle out. Like most of the best guys are signed, other than Keuchel. So it's getting a little bit thinner there for Philly in an area of need for them. But just to look at Machado wanting to sign with a contender versus a team that is potentially rebuilding. Just look at his effort last year.
Yeah.
With the Orioles, he was phenomenal offensively, but that's more like the fun side of baseball. His effort defensively was kind of spotty at shortstop, playing shortstop once J.J. Hardy moved on. Then he goes over to L.A., and all of a sudden he's a really good defender at short, or at least an average to above average defender, and he continued to rake. So this guy obviously wants to play in an environment where he is playing meaningful games.
Yeah.
And he embraces the spotlight.
And you had the whole thing with him not hustling in the World Series. And I've seen on Twitter from some Pirate fans that's like a minus in their book. Yes, he didn't hustle, and that's not good by any means. And if he comes to Pittsburgh and doesn't hustle, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be a little bit mad. But I don't feel like this would be like that for him. I mean, if he comes to a new team on a new deal, you got to look at the psychological side of it too. This guy is going to get paid. Wherever he goes, he's going to get paid. So he's going to be in a really good situation, and whatever team he signs with, he feels like that's a good city and a good team for him, a good situation again. And I feel like he won't have these, he's not going to hustle spells again. I feel like he could definitely do something for a team and show maximum effort and be a good defender and hitter.
And if we're seeing anything from the Pirates this offseason, it's that they have competitive leaders emerging on this roster.
Joe Musgrove.
Trevor Williams, Jameson Taillon, the whole pitching staff. Chris Archer. Yeah, Chris Archer isn't necessarily a great leader, but he's like loving that he's among these competitive guys that are day by day trying to get better.
Yeah.
And then on the offensive side, you've got guys.
Cervelli is a big guy who picks people up after a bad inning, especially on the pitching staff. If somebody makes an error, he won't be afraid to go up to him and be like, all right, let's just bounce back here.
Yep. And you have guys that speak the same slang in Hispanic language as Machado, being that they're from the Dominican Republic. So he's familiar with their linguistics, everything like that. He's more readily able to communicate with them. Even though he was born in the United States, he's been around.
Is he bilingual?
He is.
Okay.
And yeah, he's been around other Dominican baseball players his whole life. He played on the Dominican national team in the World Baseball Classic.
Yes.
He knows Starling Marte. He's boys with Gregory Polanco. So, yeah, he would be a great fit with this group of Pirates.
And going on to Gregory Polanco, I think I heard you say something on North Shore 9 podcast about him having a video of work, like Gregory and Manny working out together, and he took it down because, is he signing? Is he signing? Like,
yeah, so this was only rumored.
Yeah.
This was rumored that, like middle of the day, either Wednesday or Thursday, it came out. There's a Instagram live video of Greg Polanco and Manny Machado working out together, and all of a sudden, next people are saying, he had to take it down because there was a bunch of fans that were asking him, is Machado signing with the Pirates? I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
I don't think it's too significant.
I know they're friends.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. Obviously, you do have friends and family on the White Sox, but it's not like he's not open to meeting new people. And another thing that I wanted to bring up about the shortstop position, and that would probably wrap up our discussion with that, was you haven't seen the Pirates go out and sign Iglesias. You haven't seen them go out and sign Galvis. You haven't seen them trade for Nick Ahmed yet. There's a bunch of players on the market that they could call right now and just settle a deal with.
Yeah.
It's not like everybody's going after Iglesias and everybody's going after Galvis. They could get the deal done in the next 2 hours. But I think that they're waiting on Machado.
And they're waiting on Machado because they have serious interest in bringing him to the Pirates.
All right, so you think that wraps up shortstops?
Yeah, we kind of mentioned all of the periphery options. We got everything out there. Good information. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep. So, minicamp is another thing that I want to just talk about briefly, kind of casually. It was a fun experience for most of those players, some minor league guys who come in and work out with the big league squad. We saw some promising things. We saw Joe Musgrove pitching after his surgery. We saw Archer
working out, throwing off a mound, throwing.
And then Polanco swinging off a tee. So that gives some promising thoughts in my mind about where this team could go if we get Polanco back sooner than later. Lonnie Chisenhall isn't going to be a all-star outfielder per se, but he could fill that spot until we get Polanco
for
back.
2 weeks.
Yeah, and then be a fourth outfielder.
Yeah.
And come off the bench in that sense. And, Clint Hurdle said it's supposed to be fun. Like, the first little team meeting that they had, he said, yeah, my name's Clint and everything. And just joking around. It was still serious. They still got work done, but it was a fun little week for those guys. Just doing some drills, getting some swings on the tee in, some batting cage work, and they'll be back down there in about 40 days.
Yeah.
The position players.
Days. 32 days for pitchers and catchers. Yeah, about 40 days for position players. So one thing we didn't get to last time was the bullpen, and the signing of Aaron Slegers kind of leads into
the
that.
Claim, but
the waiver claim of Aaron Slegers kind of leads into that. Dario Agrizal was designated for assignment to make room for him. Dario would have been a kind of candidate to fill this role if he got to the big leagues, if he earned his way to the big leagues. Dario is coming off the 40-man roster. I don't imagine any team's going to be like, we really want this guy
we want
on our
Claimant.
40-man roster.
I think what's going to happen is, I forget who we had to clear the 40-man roster spot for, but Alex McRae was designated for assignment and option to AAA, and then non-roster invite. I think that's what's going to happen here. If you don't mind, I'm just going to talk about Slegers a little bit because I kind of researched him. So, the guy's 6'10", which is huge. He's a really, really tall guy. And he's a decent pitcher as well. He's nothing completely special. he has some good numbers with like his ERA pitching at AAA was it was at a point where he could possibly come up and make some spot starts. And he's not a relief pitcher; he is a starter. And I knew that you were just pointing
in the minors,
in the minors. And then last year with the Twins, he appeared in 4 games, started 2 of them. So I think that maybe I don't know what his future's like. We're just gonna have to see.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to see him pitch in spring training. We're gonna have to see where he starts the season and how he does. So you were talking about something.
Yeah, the thing that jumps out at me is with his height, he's generated a decent amount of ground balls. It looks like this is ground ball to fly ball.
Yeah, I could just change the tab so we can. Yeah, it's ground ball to fly out or air out.
Yeah, and it looks like throughout his minor league career, he's been a little above the 50% ground ball percentage. That's solid. I see him as like an option to make a spot start here and there, if need be. He's 26 years old.
Yeah, he's not too old, but he's right in the range where he should be breaking through.
Where he should be in the big leagues.
He should be in the big leagues at this point. And maybe he will be. Maybe he could be kind of, I don't know, the Nick Kingham of last year a little bit.
I don't see that in so much as like he's a candidate to make a spot start if you don't have a better option. Like somehow you had JT Brubaker on the roster too recently. But most of the time you may see him just like phased in as a guy who's called up from AAA to kind of fill a multi-inning reliever role. Because as a starter who's pitched a decent amount of innings throughout his minor league career, he fits that mold as a guy who's had some success in the minor leagues, and he can give you some innings out of the pen. The Pirates may get into the season and never really see a need for that type of guy. And moving forward into the bullpen, this is where Slaggers is such a fit, is because Kingham, if he were not to win the rotation job, he would probably be the long reliever.
Yeah.
Well, say he wins the fifth starter's job, then it's not interchangeable where Lyles is the long reliever now. Lyles goes into like the Edgar Santana role in the bullpen, where he can just come in and throw his fastball past people and use his off-speed pitches to complement that. Where Kingham really isn't a fit in the pen. He had issues in the first inning last year. That was like the big knock on him. This is a guy who he needs a nice, long, comfortable warm-up session before making a start. That'll be the key. Kid learn how to pitch in the big leagues. Get him a nice, long, comfortable warm-up session before starts. But just to transition back to the bullpen, we know who the closer is. We assume the 8th inning man is going to be
Keone
Kela. And the guy who's going to pitch the 8th inning when Kela is not available that day will be Kyle Crick. And we may see him.
Richard Rodriguez could, don't forget, we have a pretty good bullpen. Even though it's not big names like Andrew Miller, we still have Richard Rodriguez, Kyle Crick, who had a great year last year. I'm really liking Kyle Crick from that standpoint. So Rich Rod, Crick, Keone Kela, and Felipe Vasquez. So we have a pretty good bullpen.
And if you add Lyles into that mix, and he becomes one of the dominant middle relief, like 7th inning guys that you can count on to really get it done, then the only thing left to really bring in is someone to either take that role that Tyler Lyons seems to have the head start on, or compete with. Being that Tyler Lyons is on a minor league deal, and he fits so well as a left-handed specialist, you may just go into camp with him and Steve Brault competing for that role, and give it a go with that. So you almost have on paper 6 spots locked down. So the 7th, maybe the 8th spot goes to long relievers, provided the Pirates once again explore the possibility of an 8-man pen versus a 5-man bench. It would be a 4-man bench with the 8-man bullpen. So
it'll be interesting to see, definitely. I'm going to pull up their roster on my phone right now and kind of go over who I see coming in there. So we obviously have Archer as a starting pitcher. We have Kingham, who, in my opinion, is probably going to get that 5th spot. We have Musgrove,
Williams,
Tyon, Williams. From what I see, Vasquez is obviously going to be the closer. Edgar Santana's not going to pitch this year. Let's see, Edgar Santana. We got Stephen Brault, who could be a long relief option. Kyle Crick. Michael Feliz, where does he fit in?
Yeah, so Feliz is going to compete for. He was attempting to pitch multiple innings late last season. It didn't work out so well, but Feliz, Birdie, a couple other guys are going to compete for a significant role. Like Davidas is in the mix for that. You might even say that Lorenzo, Jesus Lorenzo.
I think that Lorenzo is going to spend most of the year at AAA.
Yeah. But Sleggers is going to compete for essentially the 7th or 8th man in the pen role. And it's like that group. Birdie, Feliz, Sleggers, Lorenzo, and Davidas. So the pen's pretty well decided.
Yeah.
1 through 6, because the 6th spot is going to go to one of those lefties.
This spring training, you're going to see a lot of people making starts. It's not going to be a 5-man rotation. We're probably going to have like an 8-man rotation. Who,
piggyback starts.
Yeah.
Backfield starts. All types of.
Because when you see Nick Kingham pitching at Lecom Park over at Pirate City, Jameson Taillon could be making a AAA start there.
Yeah.
Just to kind of keep him on the schedule, because we know Jameson Taillon's going to be in the rotation. There's no question. We know that Archer's going to be in the rotation. I'm pretty certain that Musgrove is as well. But you don't know the 5th rotation spot. So that's where facing big league activity, big league players at Lecom Park, the big league games, is where you're going to see Lyles, you're going to see Kingham, you're going to see Brault make some starts. And early on in spring training, you're going to see guys go an inning, then 2 innings, then 3, and gradually working up to a 6-7 inning spot.
Yeah. That pretty much wraps up what we have to say on the bullpen.
Yeah, we've been recording for about an hour or two.
Transitions into finalizing the starting rotation. You know what we think of this. Once we post this, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section.
Yeah,
Ryan, anything?
Tweet at us, comment, because I do read them. We have 9 subscribers right now, which is pretty good if you ask me. And then the views are pretty good as well, 75 and 55. Some other stuff about where we're going to be. Pirate Fest is coming up, and we will be there. We have a hotel room, and we have money for autograph sessions. So let us know if you're going to be at Pirate Fest. That is the weekend of the 26th. It's the 26th from noon to 5, I believe. So we'll be there that weekend. Also, we have a trip in the works. Josh mentioned it on the North Shore 9 podcast. We are possibly going down to spring training this year. So we'll have more information on that at a later time. We might be making some appearances with Anthony DiNardo. But we're not quite sure yet about all the details about spring training yet. And just another thing. This is the time of the year where we are really missing baseball because the Steelers are out of the playoffs. College football's done. We have no sports right now except for basketball, and I'm not a huge basketball guy. But so we're waiting and we're counting down, and it'll be here sooner than later. So anything for closing thoughts?
The next time you'll be able to listen to us, we'll be recording the weekend of Pirate Fest. We may be doing something live there, some type of event. So come see us.
Yeah. Let us know on Twitter. I know Josh has like 300 followers. I have about 30. So there's a big difference, but I'm sure if Josh tweets something out about this,
I'll just retweet whatever you have on this.
And, I mean, if people don't last the full hour, we should probably put something out on Twitter about, okay, we're going to be at Pirate Fest. Let us know if you're going, and then tweet that out. So, thank you guys for watching episode number 3 of Pirates Corner. We have been your hosts, Ryan and Josh, and we will see you from Pirate Fest the next time. Have a good one.
Have a good one.